It is a very uncomfortable video to watch here. A former police chief has just resigned after tape of him allegedly acting inappropriately with an 18-year-old female dispatcher began circulating online. The question is, did he sexually harass her? How could this happen? Why didn't the mayor know sooner? And what comes from all of this? Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law&Crime legal alert. There are allegations right now claiming that online apps like DraftKings, ESPN Bet, BetMGM, Bet365, Fanatics Sportsbook, Caesars Sportsbook, that they are engineered for addiction. These multi-billion-dollar companies allegedly continue to put profit over safety. Every small payout, free bet, the boosted parlay, that can trigger a dopamine rush that creates dependency and a destructive habit. This can keep users hooked and trap people in a cycle that can lead to serious financial loss. While our legal sponsors, they are taking on the online gambling industry to seek justice and potential compensation. So if you or a loved one has struggled with addiction or financial hardship or mental health issues due to sports betting apps, then visit gamblinglawsuits.com/sidebar to take a short quiz and check your eligibility to file a claim. Let's talk about Police Chief Jason Hare out of Cordova, Alabama. Maybe I should say former police chief. Husband, father, 4 months on the job. He was sworn in on June 23rd. Well, now he has resigned, and Harold Cox has been named interim chief. Why did he resign? What is going on? Now, while we have not gotten an official confirmation of why he has resigned, what has come out? It is being reported that he is accused of sexually harassing an 18-year-old police dispatcher. And now we have to wonder, was it just caught on tape? That is what we got to discuss. Now, Mayor Jeremy Pate of Cordova released this statement to AL.com. We're aware of information that is being circulated regarding a city employee. However, it is our practice not to comment on specified personnel matters. We take all reports of employee misconduct seriously and respond promptly and thoroughly. He also indicated that this is an administrative investigation. It's not currently a criminal matter. We'll talk about if that could change. But now we got to talk about this tape, this video that was apparently recorded on the police department surveillance camera system, okay? I will tell you, we're only going to show you portions of it. We do not want to show the whole thing here. We're only going to show you portions that we think are legally relevant. This is reportedly from August 26, 2025, which, by the way, raises a question about why are we only talking about this now? Why did it come out? There are a few parts that we need to call out. So first, it appears that Jason Hare approaches this employee. He is standing, she is sitting. At one point, it appears that he touches her hair, her head. She appears to swat him away. Then he seems to stand over her, allegedly leaning into her for over 20 seconds. There is even one part where he looks to grab her head or neck, and there's some movement or shaking, allegedly guiding her head towards him, swatting him away. And they are talking throughout all of this, but there is no audio, so we don't know exactly what's being said. Also, according to AL.com, a family member of this dispatcher says she didn't report Hare, that it was actually another employee who saw this tape, reached out to supervisors, that according to her family, this dispatcher was, quote, scared to death, that this was her first job. She's dealing with the chief of police, that she didn't know what to do. Now, I mentioned that Hare resigned, that Cox was sworn in. There was a letter from Jason Hare that was read by Mayor Pate when this happened.
Before we take roll, I want to read a short letter. It says, as of 10/6/2025, I resign as police chief of Cordova. I hope the city of Cordova the best and keep moving forward. Jason Hare. When
it comes to Hare resigning, according to CBS 42, Mayor Pate apparently said, that wasn't my decision, that was his decision. Mayor Pate also told ABC 3340, there's been chatter on the internet of an incident, and so we're just saying that we handled things in a swift manner. He confirmed that that video is the incident in question, that Hare is in the video. Pate went on to say, only thing I can say is that nobody wants to be in a position like that. Flesh is weak. People get caught up in stuff sometimes that they don't intentionally or don't necessarily want to do. I'm not making excuses for anybody. I'm just saying everybody gets caught up in situations that aren't good situations. So we need to make sure we're keeping ourselves in positions that are professional and doing the right things. As I mentioned, this video was reportedly dated August 26, 2025. Mayor Pate claims he didn't know about it until this past Saturday, that apparently the 18-year-old woman spoke to him. And when asked about why he didn't know about it until so late, Pate told ABC 3340, "We are definitely still asking questions about what went on and why this was delayed in getting turned over to us." And Pate explained that when they were made aware, they acted swiftly, saying, "Whatever goes on the internet, we don't have any control of that. I know that what went on here, we handled it in a swift manner." By the way, talking Jason Hare for a minute, this is a guy who was praised. The Walker County Sheriff's Office, where he was working before Cordova, which is relatively nearby, posted on Facebook, quote, "As Law Enforcement Appreciation Week continues, so does our series of highlighting some of the best of the office. Deputy Jason Hare is a man that needs a little introduction. A dedicated family man with many years of service at the WCSO, he stands watch over our children. After being on patrol for many years, several of them as a canine handler, he felt the call to protect our children, and he does so relentlessly. There's no finer example of a lawman, so let him know how much you appreciate him keeping our kids safe." Jason Hare was a 26-year veteran of the force. When he was brought in as chief of Cordova, the police department, the city officials, they hailed him in a Facebook post back on June 23rd, where you can see Mayor Pate swearing him in. It reads, "The city of Cordova is proud to announce the appointment of Jason Hare as the new chief of police. Chief Hare brings 26 years of distinguished law enforcement experience to the role, known for his commitment to community engagement, public safety, and modern policing practices. Chief Hare is expected to lead the department into a new era of transparency, innovation, and collaboration. We are confident that Chief Hare will build on our department's strong foundation and lead with integrity, accountability, and vision, bringing new ideas to the department. Congratulations, Chief. We are excited to have you." So now I want to bring on civil rights attorney Jack Boyd to talk more about this. Jack, thanks so much for taking the time to come here on Sidebar. How bad is that video?
I mean, it's about as bad as it can get. I mean, it's all right there laid out. Anybody who sees that video can see what's going on there.
That's the question. Is there a way a defense attorney could look at this? And by the way, as I mentioned before, there is nothing to confirm there's any kind of criminal investigation going on. But if this should amount to some sort of civil litigation or administrative action, is there a way to defend it? There are parts of it that I think they're really hard to argue that he's not touching her or not touching her in some way and positioning himself in some way. Is there a way to explain this, but a benign reason?
Criminally, I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious what's happening in there. Civilly, it's going to really depend on the knowledge that the city of Cordova and the Cordova Police Department had beforehand. Did they know that this guy was dangerous to be around young women? And if they did, I don't know if there is a way around that. I mean, it's pretty clear cut what's going on.
Let's analyze this for a moment. If someone says, "Hey, listen, 18 years old, yeah, there's an age difference here. Yeah, there's a position difference, chief of police, dispatcher." If it's all consensual and he were to own up to it and said, "Yep, you see what it is, we're playing here," talk to me about how that might be a factor or not a factor.
Well, first of all, just from the video there, it looks that there is something forcible going on. I mean, there's grabbing and such. But even still, with that power dynamic, I don't know if there is a way to argue that that's consensual. I understand that the young lady here is legally an adult, but at the same time, he's the chief of police. She's a teenager in her first job. And so I think that creates a situation where it's going to be hard to argue that anything is consensual here whatsoever.
Generally speaking, what are someone's legal rights in a workplace, whether it's an accounting office or it's a police department? What are someone's legal rights? Let's start there.
Well, you have a right not to be harassed in the workplace. You have a right not to be abused in the workplace. And you have a right to have your employer ensure that your workplace is a safe space. And I'm not talking about a safe space emotionally. I'm talking about like baseline. You're not going to be subject to abuse in the workplace. And, if the Cordova Police Department had reason to know that this guy was dangerous, by keeping him around as chief of the police, or even by hiring him as chief of police. They wouldn't have been doing that.
Is the resignation by Hare, is the resignation an admission of what he allegedly did on that tape? Remember, Mayor Pate hasn't come out explicitly and said that the reason that Hare has resigned is because of this, but I think a lot of people are putting two and two together and talk about the timing of it. But does the resignation signify to you that it is an admission on the part of Hare about what he allegedly did?
You know, I don't know if I would consider it an admission on the part of Hare, because to me, it doesn't look like Hare had any part in this decision. I mean, the statement from the mayor was vague, but there's this sort of suggestion that, oh, we saw the video and we had to take action. So I think what the resignation is most likely is really a favor to him. Let him resign so they don't remove him in the first place. But it certainly is a signal that folks know that something very wrong happened here.
And generally speaking, in these kinds of situations, what is happening now? What is happening behind the scenes? What does an internal investigation look like? What could be potentially the role of law enforcement, police in this?
Well, the role of law enforcement and police right now, and I understand, as you mentioned, there's no indication that there's a criminal investigation. They're going to have to decide whether they want to bring charges against him. Ordinarily, you'd need some element of victim cooperation before that happens, but that's usually because a victim's testimony is critical to a case like this. Most cases, there aren't cameras around. Here, they know what happened, and so they're going to have to make a decision over bringing criminal charges. Civilly, it's really going to be all up to the young lady right now to decide whether or not she wants to bring a lawsuit herself. If she does, she'll have an opportunity to do that. But again, those lawsuits are typically far more focused on the institutional angle in determining who knew what and when, and could this have been prevented from happening in the first place.
Let me explore that a little bit in 1 second. Just to be clear, though, whatever administrative investigation or internal investigation is going on, there wouldn't be further consequences for Hare. I mean, he resigned. He's not going to be part of that police department. Is there any other consequences that he could face from an internal investigation by the city, by the police department, to make sure, let's say, he doesn't operate in a police department in any nearby county, or doesn't act as chief of police? Is there any kind of report that is put out? So again, I'm not talking about a potential lawsuit by this 18-year-old dispatcher, but generally, what could be the further consequences for Mr. Hare moving forward?
Well, the city of Cordova has gone through the first step in terms of just getting him out of that position, and that's a good first step. The next real consequence, outside of course, criminal charges, which they, I think, clearly could bring, the next step is really whether or not this guy could get hired as a police officer, you know, in the next town over. And the protection of that really is the possibility of a future lawsuit. Any police department that hires this guy now, if he does something like this again, you can't say you didn't know this guy was a danger. It's on the internet. Everybody knows. And so the hope is that because this is so public and because this is out there, these departments will make the right decision. But it's really going to be up to them.
Mayor Pate was very keen on saying they don't know how the video was made public. They didn't have anything to do with it getting out. They did their best to make sure this 18-year-old was protected, that there was no retaliation. Mayor Pate had indicated that he was only made aware of it, a few days ago, that he apparently spoke with this 18-year-old. What does that tell you?
Well, it doesn't tell me a whole lot. The reality is the city has been, I think, a bit tight-lipped. I mean, they're talking about this as an employee incident or an incident involving personnel. But there's a lot that we don't know. I mean, this video was taken in August. He's removed in October. So it's not clear exactly when the notice of this event was actually given to the public officials involved. It seems like there was an employee who stepped in and did the right thing in terms of getting this out there. That wasn't the city that did that. But I think time will tell what's really going on there.
And you talk about the potential of a lawsuit that she could potentially file against who? The department, the city, Hare. I wonder if it is dependent upon whatever internal investigation comes out. I also wonder if it's dependent on, and this is interesting because normally if it was just a he said, she said, someone might say, well, if she wasn't quick to report it, what does that mean? But you have the tape, and the tape is going to be a key piece of evidence. Talk to me about what a potential lawsuit could look like and who she might go after, and what would the causes of action be?
Well, it could be all three. It could be the city, it could be the police department, and it could be Hare. The first place that my mind goes is a negligence lawsuit, which again really hinges on, were they supervising this guy properly for the start? Now, a lot of the reports have mentioned, he was only in that position for about 4 months or so.
Yep. This
guy has a 26-year history in law enforcement. You got to wonder what was happening when the cameras weren't around. And so an investigation, and really if she filed a lawsuit, that would be done by her attorneys, and they could use the subpoena power, and they could use the discovery process to get information about this. But they're looking at what's out there about this guy. Were there prior reports? Were there prior incidences? And it starts by sort of looking to see if there's smoke, to see whether there's fire. But if you're looking at the video, to me, it doesn't look like the first time he's done something like this. There was a sort of confidence, there was a certain ease with which he went in and did what he did.
Now, so you believe that they are going to look through his 26-year career and see if there was anything in any kind of police department, the Walker County Police Department. Assuming for a moment there is nothing. From all accounts, when he was brought on as the chief of police in Cordova, this guy was praised. I talked about it before. If there's nothing, then the department, the city, how could they have known that he would have allegedly done this if it just, literally came out of nowhere?
Well, if they couldn't have known, if this is truly an anomaly, they're really not on the hook.
Okay.
I mean, you could maybe make some argument about, the layout of the office and, whether or not there should be more people in a particular space. But realistically, if they didn't have any reason to know that this guy was dangerous, that's not a lawsuit for them. It would be a lawsuit for anybody who hires this guy in the future if he does it again.
Right. Now, you mentioned going through his record, going through his career. There's always a possibility, now that this has been making news, someone else may come out if there really is something. If something should surface, some incident in his past, does it jeopardize the cases that he worked on?
Well, it could, and that's one of the things that is so severe about this action. I mean, when you hire somebody to be a police officer, let alone chief of police, you are putting in that person the public trust. You're saying that the public trusts this person, and there is a lot of reliance on the testimony of police officers and on the actions of police officers to meet the standard of that public trust. And that's why this is such truly a betrayal of the power that was given to this guy. And I think it does call into question past cases and past behavior in terms of what was going on at the Cordova Police Department.
Jack, you mentioned, or the police departments he was a part of before. Jack, you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to misquote you, that it's possible there could be criminal charges down the line, right? What do you see? What would support that? What do you think a criminal charge could look like here?
Well, at a minimum, I think it is harassment, which is a criminal offense in the state of Alabama. I think there is also an argument that this is a sexual assault that we're looking at. I mean, what he's doing here is he's grabbing her head and putting his crotch in her face. That is a touching of an intimate part of her body. That is there's an element of forcible compulsion. So I think it could be a sexual assault charge. It's also could be a simple assault charge. I mean, with the grabbing of her, what appears to be her head and neck area. So I think there are a few different angles that a prosecutor could take if they want to bring charges on this.
Jack, before I let you go, so the video that we've shown, we've only shown portions of it, what we think are legally significant for a case like this. Does she have a cause of action? Can she sue whoever was responsible for publishing this?
Potentially. So that area of law is one that's developing. as far as disseminating imagery of somebody that's deeply personal. I would expect that would be more likely if she were a minor at the time. Her being an adult, and the fact that this is something in the public interest to be out there, the fact that her face was blurred, maybe. I don't think so.
Jack Boyd, thanks so much for coming on, breaking it down for us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. See you next time.